Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
Still no war. Thank God. But I think we get where this is headed. I think the reality is it's getting closer and closer. It's kind of weird. It's like I find this to be kind of like last week, the Super Bowl. So during the Super Bowl, you wake up that day, right? Even that week or two leading up to it, it is the preamble, if you will, right? So you've got all the media requirements at home. You're making sure everybody at home's taken care of. Who's going to be coming with you? Who's not going to be coming with you? What they're going to do while you're gone. Then you spend that week getting ready. Press conferences, selling why your team's better than the other team, what you need to watch for when it comes to the other side of it. And then eventually it becomes the day, right? And the day it's kind of moot. It's kind of quiet, but everybody else is doing the talking. And I feel like that's where we're at. Shelling right now is intensifying. You have got the Russians making their case to the UN, which is what they're doing, that there's genocide going on and that they need to sort this out. The President of the United States talking about how real is this thing. Yesterday, they kicked out some of our diplomats in Russia. Feels like it's getting much closer, right? We're not quite there, but it's getting close.
How high is the threat of a Russian invasion right now?
It's very high. They have not moved any of their troops out. They've moved more troops in, number one. Number two, we have reason to believe that they are engaged in a false flag operation to have an excuse to go in. Every indication we have is they're prepared to go into Ukraine, attack Ukraine.
Yeah. It's feeling that way. The not backing down, because the thought was the other day, they're backing down. Then you find out, they're moving soldiers to different places. We talked to Mike Lyons yesterday. If you didn't have a chance, check out the podcast. He was on in the second hour, and he was telling, look, you start moving these guys around because, first of all, they're anxious and they're bored, and having them sit there is not something you want. You start moving them from place to place, setting stuff up, and getting them. They probably know when it's go time. They know they're being delivered their orders as we speak. And then you've got the Russian separatists already still engaging with the Ukrainians. And you could talk about a diplomatic option, but the diplomatic option is, it's to me, we've presented it. We've presented it. They're not going anywhere.
In a letter to the U.S., they have restated their hardline demands, including that Ukraine never be allowed to join NATO. Now, Secretary Blinken is set to meet next week with his Russian counterpart, but the Russians have made clear if their demands are not met, they say they will be forced to take unspecified, quote, military technical measures.
Okay, then that's what you're going to do. How are you telling a sovereign nation who they can and can't hang out with? How are you looking over and saying, you guys are a sovereign nation? We're no longer the Soviets, right? This isn't the CCCP. This isn't the Soviet Union. No. How are you, Moscow, telling everybody in Ukraine, look, you guys want to join? We're not going to let you. Yeah, but you're not our country. Well, as far as we are concerned, you're our country. So no to that. No to that. You can't. You can't. What if we were to tell Mexico, who wants to join some sort of thing with now you can go put sanctions on them if you want to, right? You could play the hard line of the diplomatic way if that's what you feel you need to do. But you're telling them outright no, or else we're going to come in. I think we all know it's going to happen. It's not if, but when at this point. Then the question becomes, what's it do for us here in the United States?
My guess is that you're going to see $5 gas, and you might get to 6.5 or 7.
I think a lot of people are feeling that way. That's why Biden came out the other day. And for all of the stuff that's going to happen with the sanctions, understanding that the second largest producer of oil on the planet is Russia, and they will have big influence on that. The reality is it's going to get more expensive for us. And he talked about liberty's not cheap. Liberty is not free. and to brace us and the world for higher prices on everything in a time when we're battling insanity when it comes to inflation at this point in time. I mean, not a lot. That at this moment, some of it's completely out of everybody's hands. And this is what Russia's going to do. And I think we realize that now. I think there was hope earlier in the week, but now they're just making the case. And the case is, yeah, we're going to come. We're coming for you. And it goes back to what we talked about yesterday. It's a great article in the Wall Street Journal, which we got ahead of, by the way, talking about Xi. And what will China do? How much is he going to back their Politburo, their 7, right? Group of people. So imagine like our 10 or 12 or 15 most powerful senators and Congress people saying, all right, here's the deal. We got to sit down and talk. What are we going to do? How do we back this guy? Do we back this guy? How much do we back this guy? Do we need him more than he needs us? Will we need him? If the world comes down hard on him and sanctions him, and then they decide that anybody working with them is also going to face sanctions, what does that do for us? How does that hurt us? Because we care about us. So Xi is going to play a big part, as are several of their key members in China, on how far they go. If they back 100% what Russia's going to do, then a lot of this is, they're going to be able to do certain things. And it shapes the world in a much different way. It shapes the world in a way where people are no longer coming to us. Bad countries will feel, well, as long as we could piss the West off enough for them, we're going to get some good cover. It may not be perfect, but we'll have a good amount of protection and shielding from a lot of these things. They should have been having things in place along the way, even putting some sanctions slowly but surely every time they moved stuff closer. And as they were making demands, our demands should have gone in. Because at this point in time, if he's already got himself in a position where Xi has said, hey, I'm going to help the hell out of you, and I'm going to back you, what do sanctions mean at that point? Oh, it'll be tough at times, but not as tough as it could have been or should have been. 323-538-2423. At Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. Tweet at us, text the program. Love hearing from all of you. All that being said, inflation through the roof. 61% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. Mortgage rates jumped yesterday. Middle class is feeling it. 61% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. Even with rising wages, the reality is your wages aren't keeping up, especially with the jumps that we're looking potentially of having. We vote with our pocketbook. We know that. Is all of this Biden's fault? Well, there's a good portion of it when it comes to printing money and continuing to hand out money that you can point right back to. Why did we do this $1.6 trillion, early last year in his presidency? The second round of money that Trump and them went and rolled out, that was also an issue. You can't print money constantly. The second thing is, what are they waiting for when it's raising rates? What are you waiting for? Like, you've been waiting and hemming and hawing, but that's the hubris of the fact that I think that they think they can control it in ways that they have in the past that weren't as complicated. So this is going to be a situation that, people are going to start to feel it. People are going to ask, are we going to recession? Well, people are spending money. People are spending money because people spend money. We have to, right? But what they're spending it on, they're not getting as much for. And because things are more expensive, they're spending more money. So there's some situations here. Plus, we talked about it yesterday, where one of the big situations that costs everybody's like, look how much money we spent in January and early February. Yeah, but how much of that was gift cards, gift certificates that only count when they're redeemed? A massive amount of that. Plus, many people got the last $1,400 check. I didn't even know they're still handing out checks. We feel that. You couple that with $6, $7 gas potentially, man, you're going to feel it big time. Huge. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. Tweet at us, text the program, a lot of stuff to get to. Returning to the office, I want to touch on this because as Omicron slowly but surely fades away, and it's dropped precipitously in the last, 2-3 weeks. I mean, like you could not believe. It's fallen off the track quickly, like a lot of people predicted it would. It's quick, it's fast-moving. They called it the Omni-Cold, and it kind of just went through everybody and gave a fair amount of people a ton of protection. But now, as has been planned, more and more people are heading back to the office. And I got a question for you guys. I'm going to ask you straight ahead. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. Tweet at us. Got home last night, right? My wife, she greets me. Daughter runs up to me. Big hugs. Who beats him there? Doodle. Because he's the Doots. My dog. I love it. He's happy. He's bouncy. He's healthy. My dog, I thought I was going to put to sleep a few years ago, but we made one little change. We started giving him Rough Greens. Rough Greens is an incredible supplement. Goes on top of his food. It's called Canine Vitasmart. Vitamins, minerals, all the omegas you can think of, all this incredible stuff that we just put on top of his food, right? So that's it. Like, we didn't buy anything else. We didn't have to go out and buy really expensive food or anything. And what it's done for him is it's really made his arthritic hips virtually gone. The joint pain is not there. He's happy, he's healthy, and the energy levels through the roof. I love that. Right now, Rough Greens want you to try it right now for free. All you do is cover the cost of shipping. That's it. Simple and easy. RUFFgreens.com/Chad. See what it can do for your dogs. If you love your animals like I love my animals, I do so much for them, and I love the fact that this has given him an extra boost and kick in life. RUFFgreens.com/Chad or call 833-MY-DOG-77. Rough Greens makes any pet food better. Chad Benson Show.
Podcasts are American as hot dogs, apple pie, football, and sushi.
Oh my goodness. No.
Okay, maybe not sushi. Next time you have a craving for something sweet and tangy, download a Chad Benson Show podcast.
Boy, that is good. It's different because you get a little bit of saltiness.
It's so good because it's sweet and salty at the same time.
Get a taste on iTunes, iHeart, or Spotify and binge to your ears' content.
Oh, yeah.
You're listening to The Chad Benson Show.
The Communist Olympics coming to an end this weekend. It has been I've said this. Growing up, I enjoyed the Olympics. You get to see a lot of sports you didn't get to see. I always found hockey to be fascinating. Obviously, maybe arguably one of the greatest upsets in history of sport took place when we beat the Soviets. That being said, this has been awful. I mean, last year's Olympics sucked. The Summer Games. I mean, COVID, it was not a time or place if you're not going to have fans. But this was just a farce from the beginning. And it was, and I've heard a lot of people say it, and I'm right. Like, imagine if, like, instead of the games taking place pre what the Nazis did heading into World War II, but kind of like as they were already in World War II. It's kind of what this was. Like, we knew they had camps, but we're still going to have games there. It's a joke, and it continues to be so. All that being said, the people are now pissed, and I do feel bad for this 15-year-old skater who was, again, her sample was dirty. Do I think for a moment that she took all those things? I don't. I think that, they have a history of this, and you keep your mouth shut. Then the IOC's pissed because after she got off the ice yesterday and she fell 4 times and she still finished 4th, her coaches just destroyed her. And it's it's going to be over. Now the question is, does the over of this mean the attack of Russia? Because I've said from the beginning, he will do nothing right now. Needing Xi in the way that he does, he'll do nothing until this thing's over. Now, he could attack Sunday night into Monday. He as the game's final parts of the games go on, and the closing ceremonies, he could go in, but not going to upstage him. I saw none of it. I was very proud. I saw a little bit of curling, which still fascinates me. It's like it's shuffleboard, but it's kind of bowling, and it's janitorial services. So, I mean, if you would have told people 100 years ago, curling, the sport's going to be fantastic, like, what is it? Well, first of all, you got to get a broom. What? Yeah, you got to get a broom. No. 323-538-2423. At Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. Tweet at us, text the program. The Omicron it's gone, right? We're going to talk about this and the getting back to work. Because I posed a question out there as more and more people are heading back to work. And you take it, you can tweet at me at Chad Benson Show. You can also take the poll in, it's on the old Twitter there, which is the COVID off-ramp is here. Bosses, people out there are saying, hey, it's time for people to come back to the office. If your boss came to you, because a lot of people have enjoyed this, and said, hey, we're going to give you this option, 4-day work week. You can work from home full-time or a little bit of hybrid or both. What would you choose? It's interesting because people are making serious choices right now about work and that balance of life, especially as COVID is kind of in the rearview mirror, at least this episode of COVID is, and people are reflecting. 323-538-2423. At Chad Benson Show's your Twitter. A lot of other stuff to talk about. It is the Chad Benson Show.
The Chad Benson Show.
Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
We're all trying to figure out what's next. What's next for schools? What's next for masking? What's the next variant that's coming out? I was actually talking yesterday on my local show in between segments with my on-air partner, my buddy Gatos, and he and I were chatting, and I said, what's weird is you haven't heard, because normally as one of these waves ends, they're trying to get you braced for the next thing. Right? The next thing's coming. This one's called whatever it's called, and they give it a name, right? So, we've had Omicron, we had Delta, we had the UK variant, we had the original one. So we haven't heard. Like, there hasn't been that, oh my God, did you see somewhere else something's happening? But it doesn't mean people aren't still worried about what may be next. And when we were going over that thing yesterday, I pointed out to everybody, in that survey of, what Americans are worried about as they head into this election season, COVID was third, but it wasn't COVID. It was essentially the reaction of COVID. How are people going to react? Not so much the average person, but politicians. California, the most populous state, one of the largest economies in the globe, still under bizarre rules. Like, think about this for a second. How many of these states, their governors have extended over and over again arbitrarily these emergency rules, which gives them, carte blanche power to kind of do whatever they want? I mean, you're seeing it in Canada, for God's sakes. There is no way they should be under any kind of martial law / emergency rules based on their constitution and what they have up there because of truckers. But I digress. So yesterday they were getting ready right, to roll out the stuff in California. And why it matters is because New York, L.A., as crazy it is, there is a lot of commerce that goes on there. They're the 5th largest economy in the globe. Think about that. That is massive. It is. But also, as goes the coast, in many cases, so it kind of fans out across the country. They're trying to step away, and people reporting, like the rest of the nation, a good portion of it's kind of doing their own thing and living their lives. So people are still looking over here and go, like, why are you guys under emergency orders? Secondly, we're kind of already living our lives. But when asked about, quote unquote, the end of whatever it is that they're doing out there, the governor, Newsom, and why it's also important is because he's going to run for president, and I won't be shocked if it's in a couple years.
We have all come to understand what was not understood at the beginning of this crisis, that there is no end date, that there is not a moment where we declare victory.
No, I mean, you're understanding that. I think we were one of the, I started screaming the word endemic like a long time ago because we've never eradicated something that can go from animal to human. So that was never going to happen. So endemic was going to be it. It's just what kind of responses were we going to get? How many people actually have it? The one thing Omicron did, which most viruses do at some point in time, viruses' goals are to stay alive, right? That's like its goal is to stay alive and be able to go from host to host. Well, if you kill your host off, that's not a good virus. It's a deadly virus, but it's not a good virus because the quicker you kill your host off, it's one of the reasons Ebola virus has never been the thing that scares everybody in the movies like Outbreak, because it's hard to catch. It's hard. Dr. Kara Christ, who was our leader essentially here in Arizona for a while for the health department side of things, she worked on some of the stuff from the Ebola virus, and she says, look, I was there. It's not an easy thing to catch, but it kills quick, so it's hard for it to go from place to place. If it ever became aerosol and was able to travel, that's one thing, but it doesn't. This was easy, and it got rid of the vulnerable first, and it's still doing that. And that's sad, and some people who were healthy got sick and died, but the one thing the Omicron did is the spread of it offers a ton of immunity that even vaccines aren't doing.
There is a perception that the COVID pandemic is now perhaps in its final stages. Do you share that belief?
So I think that is a reasonable scenario. And the way I think about it is I think there's an 80% chance that as Omicron evolves or the SARS-CoV-2 virus evolves, we are going to see less and less virulent viruses.
Yeah. Meaning, there is. We've got a lot of people here, 70+% of Americans have either some sort of, inoculation or immunity to the site. They've either had their shots, the booster, whatever, or they've had access to it through being sick, and they have built up their immunity. And so that's why you see a precipitous drop in the numbers, and it's time to move on. And now the battle's going to begin is, can you mandate it in schools and things of that nature? When are the mandates going to come off for reality? Because we don't mandate the flu shot. And for kids, that's going to be the battle next year. Places that are going to try to mandate kids getting the COVID shot when kids aren't getting it. Only like 25 to 30% of kids have gotten the. If you look at 5 to 11, it's about 20%. A little bit higher in the 11 to 17, and there is no shot for 0 to 5. But mandating it, that's going to be the next battle. Because parents, while they may have gone out and gotten the shot themselves and are all about that, they also looked at the science and said, this is stupid. Not doing it for our kids. And we don't mandate the flu shot. You get a measles shot, mumps, certain things like that, because we've eradicated it and we don't want to give it any chance of coming back. That's fine. Stuff that's been tried and true through the years, that's understandable. Right? But it's a one and done, right? You don't go back every year and get a measles shot or a mumps shot, or you don't. And we don't mandate the flu shot. This will be the next one. And there's big pockets that have filled themselves full of money, and they would like to have more of it. Think about what the FDA gets from all of these giant companies like Moderna and Pfizer. Some $1 billion+ a year flows into their coffers. They're going to enjoy more money if they can mandate this. And then you've got the other side of it, us going back to work. That's a big thing. We got an email yesterday because we have been, when this thing started 2 years ago, it was, for the first year, super skeleton. Producer, on-air host. A couple news people in the room and one engineer. And normally we have anywhere between 75 and 100 people here. That was it. Everybody else went to work at home. Last year, we got to a point where we had about 10 to 15% of the office in, and it's kind of stayed steady. We got an email yesterday that, hey, everybody's heading back to the office.
For the first time in nearly 2 years, for many, the workplace is starting to look like something it did pre-COVID. More places are ending mask requirements for vaccinated employees, including Tyson Foods, Walmart, and Amazon, unless state or local laws require them. Many financial companies called employees back to work this week. Even big tech like Microsoft and Facebook, which had allowed employees to work fully remote during the pandemic, are now beginning to set mandatory return to the office dates.
Yeah. And that got me thinking, because what we're also seeing what I read during this email is something that I think you're going to start to see is people have enjoyed their time home. And you've read the Great Resignation gave people a thought of, well, this is awesome. I got to spend time at home. I want to do that. And so what happened? That 5.5 million people or 4 million people went out and they started their own business, whatever that business was. Sometimes it's just hustling on the side. Sometimes they've had a dream and they put it together. Sometimes it's just people have gone out and said, I'm going to go work for Uber Eats and all of these kind of things because I'd like to set my own schedule. Being at home is important. Businesses are going to have to face the reality that this was kind of coming, but it moved up tremendously, the time frame, because of COVID. And getting people back in the office is going to be tougher and tougher. And so they're offering hybrid models. Some offices, and one of my friends here, I told you guys yesterday, he's shutting his office here, opening a very small office where people can go by. It's a mortgage company. They can do signings and stuff like that. And that's where the physical side of it will be. But he was paying $30,000 a month. And he goes, I haven't had people in the building for 2 years. And my people are more productive. And I thought, And then you're seeing businesses now say, okay, how about a hybrid model? Or how about this? We close the office. You can work at home, but you're going to work 5 days a week. And some people are saying, and other people are saying, how about I come to the office, but I work 4 days a week? So that got me thinking. So if you had to go back today, your boss calls you back, but they're going to give you options. What would you choose? Would you like to work from home? Would you like a 4-day work week? Or would you like a hybrid of both? And I think what you're going to find is more and more people are, and right now it's split down pretty much the middle. 36 say work from home, 4-day work week, 30%, and 33% says a hybrid of both. I've worked from home for a long time. The difference between when I was doing voiceovers and working from home is none of my other friends were home. They didn't have, they had a 9 to 5 kind of thing. And so it was weird because you'd go in and you'd be, hey, what are you doing today, man? I want to go hit some golf balls. I did my voiceover stuff. I don't got anything to do today. And they're like, I got to work. Now a lot of people are. And a lot of businesses are saying, hey, here's the thing. I need this by close of business Tuesday next week. You can get it done whenever you get it done. So you may wake up and work on it from 5 a.m, take your kids to school, come back and work from 9:30 till noon, then go do something, come back, work on a little bit later at night. The hybrid model seems to be popular as well, but the work from home is huge because it does give you the opportunity. If I could work from the house and have the opportunity to spend more time, especially with my little one, Charlie, because Jack's in San Diego, it'd be invaluable. I mean, to me, because I missed that with Jack, and my work balance is not always great. But that's something that is awesome. I can't do it here locally with my partner because he would be too weirded out by it, and me not being in the room, and me doing my show the way I've done it for years. I mean, my producer Phil, he's in Arlington, Virginia. My other producer Anthony, oddly enough, is like a block away, but not in the office. Anthony, but it's interesting, and that's the way the world's headed now. Rightly so. I was saying yesterday, these office buildings we're sitting in are going to make neat condos. 323-538-2423. At Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. Tweet at us, text the program. Love hearing from every single one of you. Still no attack in the Ukraine. Still not happened. Obviously, it's getting closer and closer. I think it's now in a situation not if but when. Yesterday we had our diplomats, some of them expelled from Russia, which kind of points to the fact that things are getting ugly on the inside that maybe we're not hearing about. But I think the pathway is there. It's just what date and off-ramp as far as that day goes are we going to see. 323-538-2423. At Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. Had a cinnamon roll today. Chad, that's weird. Yeah, but settle down. Because I thought you were doing Nutrisystem. I am doing Nutrisystem. That's the beauty of this. Nutrisystem. Cinnamon roll. It was great. Guys, we want to look good. Right? We want to feel good. We want to be healthier. Nutrisystem's going to give you all that, but we also don't want to eat stuff that sucks. Let's just be 100% honest, right? I want to get in smaller jeans, better shorts, not feel weird when I take my shirt off at the pools. The summer starts to approach, and it's Nutrisystem's it. You're not going to be starving all day because they've got up to 30 grams of protein. The meals are big and they just fill me up, and I love that. I do. I absolutely love that. I had a chicken sandwich yesterday. Delicious. They've got restaurant favorites. And the way that they do this with their advanced nutritional science, it's going to help you with your blood sugar levels, which is going to see you drop weight. And I'm dropping weight, and I'm feeling great. And it's 50% off. That's a win. Breakfast, lunch, dinner, snacks, and yes, desserts, all delivered to you. That is another win. Take advantage of this right now. 50% off. Nutrisystem.com/Chad. 50% off. Nutrisystem.com/Chad. Saves you 50%. That includes everybody, even you ladies. Nutrisystem.com/Chad. Results vary. Offer restrictions apply. See website for details. Chad Benson Show.
Don't let the Washington Beltway strangle you. This is where the exhausted majority comes to refuel, realign, and reevaluate. This is Chad Benson.
I find this thing, if you guys have not been following the story, it's a very bizarre story that's coming out on a cruise ship. A woman who threw herself overboard in the Gulf of Mexico of a Carnival Valor balcony. She wasn't wearing a mask, by the way. And originally they said she was handcuffed, which that was not true because remember, and that'll be the story that'll, oh my God, it was. But people are saying that they weren't quite, something happened in a hot tub. And I don't know what happened in the hot tub that led to this, and I'm sure we'll find out more. But she then was taken out of the hot tub. There were 3 security officers. She started screaming, Alicia, and they were trying to restrain her. And then apparently she broke free from that and jumped over board. And then from there, it gets a little hazy. Some people say that she hit lifeboats on the way down and went face first in the water. And then she was having a seizure and there was, blood. It's hard to tell at that point. It's just a weird, man, I'm telling you, Carnival, sometimes Carnival's always kind of been, it's the Walmart of the seas. Chad. I'm saying, I'm not saying it's bad. I've been on a few Carnival cruises myself. They're fun. But it's a budget thing, right? It's like if you fly Air Emirates, you're like, this is nice. If you fly Allegiant, you're like, well, we might make it. If you can see rust on your ship, chances are it's party time. That's all I'm saying. 323-538-2423. At Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. We have no football this weekend. It's 0 football. Luckily, golf season's in full swing, and I love golf the most. But we have no football this season. Premier League's going on. Watched a little bit of that. We have no football. Should I go to the movies? That's a good question.
Time to start the show. The show's starting today after more than 2-year hiatus. The new season of The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel debuts on Amazon Prime Video. On Apple TV+.
Hello, my name is Mark S.
Adam Scott and Patricia Arquette star in Severance, a dark drama from Ben Stiller about work-life balance. In theater,
biggest treasure that's never been found.
Tom Holland and Mark Wahlberg star in Uncharted, based off the popular video game series. And Channing Tatum stars in the road trip Dog Calm Dog. You're just a demon!
Yeah, I don't, there's just not a lot going on. I mean, that's kind of where we're at right now. There's not a lot going on. It's that weird lull till July and August when football comes back. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show. It's your Twitter. Speaking of that, did you see that lady fall in Los Angeles at the parade where she just disappeared off the stage? And Matt Stafford looked and he goes, "Oh, blank." And he turned around and he just walked away. And his wife came over, and she kind of looked over. And you know, what kind of fall was it? She was probably up about 8 or 10 feet, and she fell. She broke her back. And people were mad at him, and he was hammered. You can't do that. He didn't push her or anything, but he said he's going to pay for her medical bills. Chad Benson Show.
This is the Chad Benson Show. Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
U.S. officials are expecting a worst-case scenario, bracing for Vladimir Putin's version of shock and awe. Russian troops going into Ukraine from at least 3 sides. Missiles spewing across the sky. Special forces attacking the capital city of Kyiv, armed with a list of military and government officials to target.
Yeah. Shock and awe. It's going to happen, it looks like. I think they could try to send 1,000 love letters and what do you want over, but the one thing that they want, that they really, really want, no way. Sorry. What do they really want?
In a letter to the U.S., they have restated their hardline demands, including that Ukraine never be allowed to join NATO. Now, Secretary Blinken is set to meet next week with his Russian counterpart, but the Russians have made clear if their demands are not met, they say they will be forced to take unspecified, quote, military technical measures.
Sorry, no. They're a sovereign nation. We've invited them to the club. They're interested. Well, we may want to join your club. They're their nation. They should be able to make up the rules for their nation as they see fit. You can sanction them. You can say, we're not going to do business with you anymore. You can say all of those things. But to tell them they don't have a right to join NATO? Sorry. No can do. Nor should it happen. Nor should it. Now, business side of things, it's understandable. You want to say, look, we're not going to do business with you guys anymore. We're not going to do this. We're not going to do that. But they can't because they're intertwined in a lot of ways. And there are all tons of Russians who live in the Ukraine. And a lot of Ukrainians feel that they have a draw to Russia, although that's diminished over the last several years with the infighting and the Russian separatists. But the reality is it is still a sovereign nation. We don't want NATO on our doorstep. That, like I said yesterday, totally understand that. We go back to the Cuban Missile Crisis. What was taking place there? All of those things. How close we were to nuclear war, which I don't think a lot of people understand, that it was basically a Russian sub-captain who pretty much stopped the world from entering into nuclear war. All that being said, it's understandable why you would not want them on your doorstep, because it will stop you from doing the things that you want to do, which is evil and bad. I'm not talking about the Russian people. I'm talking about the pooter. Again, he doesn't want the Soviet Union back. He wants to make sure he can control several of their former states. But he didn't want them like as partners. He wants to be the made man who's the mob boss, who tells all the other families what they can and can't do. And his word at the end of the day is silence. I will silence you if you screw with me. My word is above reproach, and it is the end all to be all. Can we come to your house? No. I don't want you around me. I just want you to do what I say. What are we going to be doing? What are we going to be doing? That's the big thing. I mean, we can only do so much. Obviously, we're going to go and we're going to try everything that we can to make sure they have the arms they need. But also, as we've spoken to Mike Lyons, a former military analyst, he's on our show yesterday. If you missed it, grab it on podcast. He was very upfront about what is probably going to happen just because they are so much more advanced. And the shock and awe of which they want to hit, they're already starting to hit their banks, their military infrastructure when it comes to cyber attacks. They're setting their case up at the UN for genocide. The Security Council came out today. The UN head of the Security Council and said that this would be an absolute disaster if they invaded. But they've set it up. So now we're going to, as Biden pointed out the other day, there's going to be some pain. So there's going to be some pain at the pump. There's going to be some pain in probably the stock market for a bit. There's going to be some pain at the grocery store. We're going to be paying more because we're going to have to understand that there's going to be pressure from the world and on Russia, I hope. But he did say yesterday, and I found it to be interesting, I said, which one of the NATO allies and which one of them blink first and kind of give in? And he said it's going to be Germany. Germany is, normally they're all about the war thing, right? But because they're so heavily dependent on energy from Russia, that anything that may happen to benefit the Ukrainians in this fight could hurt their people when it comes to energy prices and or getting any of it. They're not going to, in any way, shape, or form, say, yeah, we're going to sanction you. Unless we can prove to them and others that we can cover certain parts of their energy. They just started, the minute they started taking because we said last July, June, July, when they gave in and said, through Germany, who pushed hard, they wanted that Nord Stream 2 pipeline. Right? So they wanted that pipeline. And Germany has started taking all of their nuclear facilities, which powered a good portion of it. Talk about clean energy, but it's bad. Talk about clean energy. They're taking those down, and they took off a good majority of them at the start of the year. So now they're becoming even more dependent on that energy. So, yeah, they're looking at their people going, we got to do what's best for our people. But now you're beholden to a guy that is, the pooter. Biden was asked about the threat.
How high is the threat of a Russian invasion right now?
It's very high. They have not moved any of their troops out. They've moved more troops in, number one. Number two, we have reason to believe that they are engaged in a false flag operation to have an excuse to go in. Every indication we have is they're prepared to go into Ukraine, attack Ukraine.
Yeah. Yep. And that's continuing to play out. Blinken today, Secretary of State, talking about, these false things that they're throwing out there, which our intelligence agency, which I can always say, I'm not quite sure I buy everything, but several others also reported over the last couple of weeks that they were setting up scenarios of which they could pitch to the world to give some sort of justification for this.
A scenario that is already in play of creating false provocations of then having to respond to those provocations and then ultimately committing new aggression against Ukraine.
Yeah. So it's kind of where we're headed right there. It's kind of where we're headed. And would I be shocked that it takes place in the next week? No. I think a lot of people are feeling that that's it. And if I was them, you've made your pitch. There's nothing else you can do. They've started to expel some of our diplomats. You've made your pitch. Nothing else is going to change. Nothing else. This is what it is, and you're going to have to let it play itself out.
We are deeply concerned that that is not the path that Russia has embarked on, and that everything that we're seeing, including what you've described in the last 24, 48 hours, is part of a scenario that is already in play of creating false provocations.
Yeah. They went to the UN and pitched it. The UN's already said, don't do it. They're going to, if they want to. They're going to if they want to. And it goes back to the UN thing. That's the demand they want. They want to tell another sovereign nation that they can no longer have any kind of talk and or even entertain the idea of joining NATO.
The entire alliance stands with Ukraine in supporting its sovereignty, its territorial integrity, its right to choose its own path, and its relations with its neighbors and the rest of the world.
Yeah. That's Lloyd Austin talking about that. They're a sovereign nation. They just, the historic, should this happen? This is on par with, you're looking at a historic situation where this isn't a civil war, a breakdown of, you saw, in Yugoslavia and stuff. This is something we haven't seen since World War II. Take that in for a second. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. Tweet at us, text the program. All of that's going on. We're still, of course, talking about masking. Oh, my God. What are we going to do? What are we going to do, Fauci?
Has the CDC lost some of its relevancy?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so at all. The CDC is very relevant. They look at the scientific data, they analyze the data, and they make recommendations. I think it's the wrong thing to say that the CDC is irrelevant. They are the scientific organization.
Yeah, they've lost relevancy because of flipping and flopping and flopping and flipping. And if you don't think you've lost relevancy, take away the people who are over all of it, who are exhausted by COVID and stuff. Look at the people out there who are also government organizations at the local level who look at you and follow none of your recommendations. So take away the anti-vaxxers and all the stuff and the anti-mask people. Look at the places in the country that even in the best of times since we've had COVID and low numbers, who are ignoring data and science based on your recommendation. So how could you say you haven't lost relevancy? 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. Tweet us. We're going to find out what's trending next. MyPillow gives the opportunity right now to get a MyPillow at $19.99 plus many other deep discounts on the mattress topper, which you guys know is my favorite. The My Slippers, which I love. And, of course, let's not forget about the Giza Dream Sheets, the towels, you name it, they've got it. And deep, deep discounts across the board when you go to MyPillow.com and use that promo code Benson. On top of that, every order, you get a 6-day money-back guarantee, right? You get up to a 10-year warranty. Everything's made right here in these United States of America, which is an amazing thing, which I think we need to support more of. But you're also going to get a free book about Mike Lindell and his life and how he went from struggling with drugs and addiction to becoming the CEO of MyPillow. Take advantage of all these deep discounts right now by going to MyPillow.com using that promo code Benson. MyPillow.com, promo code Benson. MyPillow.com, promo code Benson. At Chad Benson Show, Twitter, ChadBenson, Chad Benson Show.
You stink like fear and white male privilege to me.
I do often out myself verbally as a gender. My pronouns are they, them, and I'm proud to be a gender.
Are you stupid?
What? Are you kidding me? Not a great way to use your white privilege.
Some people get it, some people don't.
You're listening to The Chad Benson Show.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, ignition, liftoff.
Now it's time to find out
What's trending? What's trending? Yeah, what does that mean? I mean something, right? Like it's trending on the old internet. What's trending?
Let's find out what's trending on the webs of the inter and the net. Start with the Google Trends. Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Fist Full of Vengeance. Both trending. Out today on, I believe, Netflix. Yesterday, number one trending thing, women's figure skating. Uncharted, movie out today. Tom Holland, Mark Wahlberg, trending. Oak Hills Country Club, one of the famed golf sites in America. The country club has been around for over a century. Burned down yesterday, and it was ugly. A woman jumping off the Carnival cruise ship is trending as well. They have given up the search and presume her dead. What took place was she was arrested. They took her into some sort of custody. I know the security is out there. I don't know what kind of laws they have on the high seas. But she was not handcuffed, it was originally reported, and she seemed to have jumped to her demise. Tyler Skaggs was trending yesterday. Former Angel employee, because he was a pitcher for the Angels, bright future. He overdosed and died. An Angels employee was convicted yesterday of his death, faced up to life in prison with a minimum of at least 20 years for supplying him with drugs. Head on over to Google, where everybody does what they do, which is be crazy. It is Hillary for prison. It's trending because, of course, you know, the Durham thing. By the way, Durham has come out and he's distancing himself from the stuff that's in his thing. And I've read it. And, you know, it will never, until she's in bars or he's in bars, Trump, one side of the aisle is never going to be happy. And they're both going to fight over this. Even Dershowitz said last night, there's nothing here that points to Hillary, but it doesn't matter because you don't need anything other than a smidge of something to build a conspiracy. Obviously, the Ukraine is continuing to be a hot trending topic as people wait for what potentially is going to happen. TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, go there. You can see stuff. They're already trading volleys of some sort with some smattering of gunfire, blaming each other for breaking a ceasefire. And the other thing is boycott Walgreens. So, because Walgreens is busted making campaign donations to 11 members of the Republican Sedition Caucus. I'm like, what? Yeah, there's a Sedition Caucus? I had no idea. But I love what they say. Really, it's just about they gave money to any Republican. That's the way it is. Donations totaling $25,500. Breaking a pledge made after January 6 to indefinitely suspend contributions of members of Congress who objected to the election certification. Shame on them. Shame! Shame! Other corporations are now being outed as well for certain things because that's what we do now. That's who we are. We're an angry group of people on Twitter. Chad Benson Show.
The Chad Benson Show.
Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
Neil Young's music returns to Spotify. Is that true? Not everything was removed from the platform because of the Rogan thing. That's not a shocker because probably doesn't own everything. So soundtracks, compilations that include some of his work, certain things like that, probably there. I know, was it India Arie? She wanted to take her music off as well, and her music company's like, no. That's not happening. But Rogan's evil. Yesterday, the news was breaking that Rogan didn't get $100 million, he got $200 million. That just sent people into a tizzy fit. How could that be? Brian Stelter, I can't wait to see what you have to say this weekend. Camarado. Man, she's going to lose her crap. I was like, CNN's still on? I think so. Remember when she came out last week? I still go back. This is amazing. This is a newswoman who's pissed.
Well, I admit I'm out of ideas for what to do about Joe Rogan. I'm officially out of ideas.
You don't listen to him. You lie about him. Of which nobody outside of the right-leaning media, nobody calls you on. I mean, it's. I'm out of ideas. Now he's got $200 million? Oh, my God. But I don't know if that number's true or not. It was kind of reported everywhere. And I'm sure, I'm sure there was stuff in place for him to make more money. Let's just put it that way. Stuff in place. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. Tweet at us. So I found this to be disturbing. And I think you guys, I'm not a big fan of price gouging. But, look, it's if there is something out there and many people want it and there is a limited amount of it, prices are going to be pushed in a certain direction, which is up. And people are going to make profit off of it. That's the reality of the whole thought, right? Like the housing. I mean, housing jumped again last month. It grew tremendously. It was up 6.7% prices because there's not a lot of houses and there's a lot of people who are looking to purchase. So you put one and one together. But Elizabeth Warren and her good pal, Bernie Sanders, are really upset. And now the DOJ and the FBI will investigate companies for illicit profit. The other day she was speaking about this illicitness, talking about inflation and how good it is.
Now, you might think inflation would also be bad for companies. After all, an increase in the cost of doing business would likely eat into a company's bottom line. But that's not happening.
Because they pass it off, by the way, for those of you not keeping score, to the consumer. That's the way that works. She's not quite getting that. If my price goes up to purchase things or to build a product, I'm going to have that price go up in the selling of said product. Let's go over that again. This normally costs me a nickel. Now it costs me a dime. I used to sell it for a dime. Now I'm going to sell it for 15 or 20 cents. That's the way that works.
In fact, the CEOs of some of the biggest companies have been bragging to their investors that inflation has created a terrific opportunity for them to boost profits. Take the grocery chain, Kroger.
She has picked on the grocery stuff for a while. And to let you know, if you look anywhere about what their margin of profit is, it is very, very small. Very, very small. In fact, they talk about, again, there's a difference between the profit side of things, so you got gross receipts and net. And they are about 1% to 2%. Oh, that's That's not insane. No, it's not insane. 1% to 2%, not bad.
Kroger has seen its business boom during the pandemic, with its stock price rising nearly 40% over the past year. Kroger's CEO recently told investors that, quote, a little bit of inflation is always good in our business, end quote. So, Dr. Boucher.
So she's going to ask this guy about this, and I don't even care about it. At that point, I'm like, you know what? The fact that you're pushing this stuff out there, it's scary. It is. It's nuts. The Department of Justice and the DOJ is going to look into illicit profits. Well, what's an illicit profit? That's what I want to know is, do we have a definition? Are businesses all getting together to gouge us? I mean, how are we going to explain this? Prices are going up. So is gas. That's the other thing. Oh, my God, gas is going up. It's going up tremendously. What are we going to do? Well, we've got a supply issue. Supply is we're consuming as much as we did pre-pandemic. There's not as much being produced as before. Part of that is like people, banks and stuff aren't loaning money to companies for oil. That's one thing. So you look at shale and stuff like that. So we're not going to be producing any of that stuff. Oh, that's weird. That's one thing. Other parts of what goes on around the globe, we place right into our hands here, right? Like, because we have to deal with it. So if we're getting stuff that's costing more from other places, naturally we're going to pass that on. And then you got to look at taxes too. So there's a lot of different things. So, but it's scary to think that like that's the kind of insanity of which they want. And then they talk about the usual stuff, right? Gas prices are at the highest level in 7 years due to corporate greed, collusion, and profiteering. Okay, so what corporation's the greedy one? Who's the profiteering? Because we don't control OPEC, and we're not drilling. So if we're going to be dependent upon getting stuff from other places, and isn't that kind of a situation there where we're going to be dependent on other things that have zero to do with us? Well, and then the housing shortage, which is always my favorite thing in the world. Lack of affordable housing. Was it last week? Everybody got on, what's his name? Dave Chappelle, because he's investing all this money in his hometown where he lives out in Ohio. And he said he was going to pull his investments if they put this housing project in it, because it was supposed to be about affordable housing. It was like, oh, Dave Chappelle hates affordable housing. Nobody ever bothers to read the story. Nobody ever bothers to dig in a little deeper. Like, because that sounds like, whoa, what a horrible person. This guy's supposed to be, somebody who's supposed to care. There's going to be 143 homes built, of which only 3 of them were going to be affordable housing homes. Oh, well, that's, yeah. But they come out, well, why is it, it's not fair that people can't afford homes? No, it sucks that prices are going through the roof and mortgage rates are now starting to jump, expensive money to borrow, and people can't afford it. But who says that everybody should get a house? Isn't that part of working towards it? They're always coming up with something of why something goes up, and it's never, well, hey, you wanted this global world, we got it. You want green energy, but we don't have it, so we have to depend on other things, including giving money to people who hate us, which makes us also dependent not just on getting that oil, but what oil may do. And oh, by the way, there's a chance we could see a war in Eastern Europe, something we haven't seen, for 70 plus years, which is going to cause, it to go more. But I'm sure it's the evil, bad people of the greedy corporate world. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. Tweet at us. Text the program. Teaching is going to be, I was reading, it's like there's a battle that shouldn't happen, and I think it happens too much, especially when it comes to teachers and because I feel there's two sets of teachers, right? You've got an older generation of teachers, and then you've got the younger generations coming in. They're very woke, and they're really, and they're all about a lot of this stuff, right? They're as much activists in a lot of ways than they are teachers. But you saw what education caused in moving an election in Glenn Youngkin winning out there in Virginia, and the just the hubris and the attitude that so many people have at times towards parents. When I was a kid growing up, you used to always say, education begins in the home. Now it's like if parents participate, they're evil, right? Like, oh my God, they're evil. I don't think, and that's ridiculous. Do I think some of this stuff is absolutely overdone with the way that we have, not everything is critical race, right? Not everything is. And by the way, you can talk about things that you would consider as critical race, but the way you teach it is the important thing. And too often than not, what you're seeing is activists. And then you saw what took place in San Francisco the other day, which was 3 of their uber left-leaning school board members were tossed out. And it's the hubris and the thought process of you people, you guys suck. We know what we're doing. We are better. And you're finding that more and more. And that's going to be, the education is going to be a massive thing as we head into this next election. And what you're going to also find is the younger generation of teachers really has kind of this attitude at times towards parents. And I've seen it with some of my kids' teachers. My mother's seen it with some of my brother's stuff. And you've got, again, separate sets of teachers, some older ones, Gen Xers, much different attitude than some of the newer ones.
So I see how you think that you've done something here because parents or community members have voiced concern to their elected official, which is how that process works. Not bringing it to a teacher, right? They're taking it to the elected official. And now that legislators are trying to implement these things. But still, in fact, a parent, not my boss. I don't actually answer to them, so get bent.
No. See, people go to the school board now because talking to you is a waste of time when we have concerns. How many times you made a phone call and you got, hey, is there anybody there that's a manager? And I need to escalate this, if you will, right? This is escalating. Let's get it to somebody who's got something. But that's an attitude there. That's not an attitude of partnership to help kids grow. That's an attitude of, screw you, parents. We're going to do what we do. And when more and more stuff comes out like that, understand that this is going to become a bigger issue. Education was third on the things that people are worried about as we head into these elections. Economy, how people deal with COVID, and education. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show's your Twitter. Tweet at us, text the program. Love hearing from you. Oh, this professor is spectacular. He is so upset about what somebody makes at Panda Express. It is hilarious. Talk about that straight ahead. Chad Benson Show.
No fake outrage here, just the real thing. The Chad Benson Show.
With the Omicron falling, as it has been doing for the last several days, as many people thought it was going to do based on the fact that it was going to run through everything, and they said it would mostly be through everybody and done by early February to mid-February, and the precipitous drop in cases. But a lot of people had planned, bosses and works, hey, you know what, first of this year at some point, we're going to bring people back first quarter, and it's happening. But people are a little nervous about going back to work because of COVID. No, because they don't want to be around people. They like their life at home. I mean, you might have a few people that are scared, but that's their irrational fear is no reason not to come back to the office if your boss asks you to. But work is trying now to figure out how do they do this, because a lot of people, they don't want to be back in the office full time. They've felt some freedom at home. It's given them a different outlook and view. And I totally and completely understand. 100%. So now work is, you're seeing in other parts of the globe. Belgium the other day, 4-day work week. Iceland's been doing it, and they're showing over and over again it works. But you got to be responsible. There's some things you can't do. Like me, one of the things that a lot of people are offering is a 4-day work week. And that's something I can't do. Hybrid model is very popular, but work from home. And bosses are offering that. And I'm asking you on the old Twitter there, if you had a choice, work from home 4 days a week in the office or hybrid, which would you choose? 37% say work from home. 29% said 4-day work week. And 33.3% essentially said hybrid. Maybe come in the office 1 or 2 days and the rest of the time at home. Having some flexibility. I think you're going to see that more and more because as they try to retain people, this is kind of what you're going to have to do now, especially in certain positions. Speaking of certain positions, a professor was, let's just say a bit angry about something he saw at Panda.
So some college professor got mad and tweeted this photo and said that he works at the college like 2 blocks down and the general manager's making more than him. And he was mad that Panda Express was paying his general managers more instead of complaining about getting paid less and going to his college and, talking to them about it. So he decided to go on a Twitter rant and thought people would take his side. For a college professor, you're pretty stupid. You know that?
He got blasted all over the internet for this by several people because, you're making $61,000 and general manager of Panda Express is making $69,000. And quite frankly, I think the general manager of the Panda Express is doing a better job for society.
You're really mad at Panda Express for paying their employees more instead of getting mad at your college that you don't get paid more. That's hilarious. You're an idiot. How are you so hollow in the head for being a college professor? How did you get that job?
Years of academia, kissing ass, things of that nature. That's how you get it. By the way, college professors, he's an associate professor. When you get to be a college professor, you're doing okay, and you can take these weird sabbaticals for a year or two. It's like I said, but Panda Express, of course. College, I'm here to tell you, you better figure out how to keep some of these costs low because people are figuring it out, and a younger generation is not buying into the crap. An older generation is saying we're not paying for the crap of indoctrination and overpriced degrees that get you something that you could have gotten by not going to college without the debt. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. Tweet at us, text the program. Love hearing from every single one of you. Take the poll. What would you prefer, a 4-day work week, a hybrid model of working from home and working in the office, or just working from home? Tweet at us. Let me know what you think. Chad Benson Show.
This is the Chad Benson Show. Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
Is there time for diplomacy? Is there? Nah, probably not. They can say it all they want.
There is still time and space for diplomacy.
Nah.
The United States, in
two.
lockstep with our allies and partners, including Poland, has offered Mr. Putin a path away from crisis and towards greater security.
Except for the part where Putin wants one thing absolutely assured.
In a letter to the U.S., they have restated their hardline demands, including that Ukraine never be allowed to join NATO. Now, Secretary Blinken is set to meet next week with his Russian counterpart, but the Russians have made clear if their demands are not met, they say they will be forced to take unspecified, quote, military technical measures.
Piss off, is what I would say. We've offered you whatever it is that we're offering them, which is essentially we're going to put sanctions on you. We're not offering you anything different. They're a sovereign nation. If they want to join NATO, that would be their right to join NATO if NATO wants to allow them to come into the club. That's it. They're a sovereign nation. You're telling them, don't do it. You're telling them, don't join or else. Think about that for a second. They're not a breakaway state. They're not a portion of the country that's just decided to go on its own. They're a sovereign nation who Putin's saying, don't do it or else. And what could that or else look like?
U.S. officials are expecting a worst-case scenario, bracing for Vladimir Putin's version of shock and awe. Russian troops going into Ukraine from at least 3 sides, missiles spewing across the sky, special forces attacking the capital city of Kyiv, armed with a list of military and government officials to target.
Yep, Moscow, and Putin's not going to listen. Apparently, he was even taking some sort of lead on nuclear drills they were doing, which nuclear is not an option. I mean, everybody has got that's big has got nuclear, and that is the deterrent for what? Anyone? Anyone? To not mess with that person, that country, that nation, that sovereignty. And for those of you not keeping score, getting rid of nuclear weapons now will be harder than ever before. See Ukraine. Do you think if the Ukraine had their nuclear weapons, of which they're one of the largest stockpiles of all time, and they decided to give it up, and we decided, hey, if you guys do this, we got your back. If you guys give these things up, we'll make sure that nothing happens. Never for a moment thinking, oh, something may happen. Nah, it would be fine. Well, guess what? Now we're trying to back up our word. But to think that now other nations who have nuclear weapons would ever give them up? No. If your neighbor had a nuclear weapon, India and Pakistan cannot stand each other. China and India cannot stand each other. What do those 3 have in common? Nuclear weapons. While they fight and skirmish here and there, the reality is they're never going to have an full-on attack because of the fear of, oh, well, these guys might launch one of those. And then we'd be forced to launch one, and then nobody wins. Who cares if you win, but you don't win? But to look at them and to say, look, you guys are going to have to give in because you guys are a sovereign nation, but they want you to do something or else. No, sorry. Sorry. The eyes are now going to look over at Xi and wonder what Xi is going to do. Are you going to do anything, Xi, or are you not? Meaning, not are you going to do something as in go take, Taiwan or anything, but are you going to do what Putin's hoping, which is if they throw sanctions on us, because you've backed us and said you don't want NATO to expand either, you're with us, are you going to help us out financially? Because if you do, then we can do this. And we got your back when you go and take Taiwan. And let's be real, the West is probably bluffing. They're not all aligned here. Germany's weak, and they're in a position of no strength because they don't have the fortitude to say, we can survive without your energy. And that want by Germany to get that pipeline in there, that want by Germany to make this kind of thing where they felt that they could start taking their nuclear facilities offline and become more energy dependent on Russia, it might cost everybody. And to put this in perspective, this is like, we haven't seen stuff like this since, I don't know, there was another issue in Germany and in Russia in the 40s. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show's your Twitter. Tweet at us, text the program. Love hearing from every single one of you. The masking fight continues back home here. It's not going anywhere. And it's crazy. that it's not going anywhere when it absolutely should. But it's always fun to listen to crazy people talk about stuff.
Personally?
Okay.
Personally, I listen to the little voice in my head that doesn't really follow 100% what they tell me because they keep changing it.
Yep.
Very short time ago, they were saying put the N95 masks on, and now they make sure it's and now they're saying you don't have to wear them anymore.
Yeah.
So if I go on the subway, if I go in a bus, if I go into the theater, if I go into where else would I go?
A crowded spot.
A crowded place. I would wear a mask, and I might do that indefinitely.
That's great. I mean, you know what? I don't find a problem with that. Go ahead. You might do it indefinitely. That's a you thing, though. You're making a decision. And that's the big thing. You make the decision that I might do this indefinitely is totally fine.
No, I worry about the kids, right? Because we know that there are kids under 5 that are in preschool that can't be vaccinated. We know that kids from 5 to 12 are the least vaccinated in the country. I still worry about them. I mean, there are effects from the Omicron variant that we don't even know about. I mean, Joy was telling me you were reading that there could be some heart type of...
Yes, they have to look that up.
So, I know parents wanted kids to get back into school. I wanted my daughter to get back into high school. Her whole freshman year of high school was remote.
Yeah.
That was a terrible thing, and it was very difficult for her. But I'd rather that than have her get sick and somehow, have these effects later on.
Effects of which you don't know, right? You also don't know the effects long-term are from the vaccines. And if we're looking at stuff, how does things like viruses eventually end up slowly but surely fading out or becoming less and less problematic? It's a certain amount of natural immunity over time that builds up that your body recognizes quicker and quicker, and then eventually you pass on, and that's kind of what happened. There was no flu shot during the flu pandemic. People lived through it, built up certain amounts of immunity and whatnot, and we're never going to eliminate this. But the fact that you're talking out your ass about 0 to 5s, I'm worried about that. Why? Go look at the data. If you care about the data, nothing's happening. They're safe. Up to 18. Kids aren't dying. Well, kids have died, yes. But as we said yesterday, 4,000 kids have died drowning in the same time as what's taken place during the coronavirus. But we're not saying, well, we should get rid of pools. Well, now you're just being stupid. No, I'm being realistic, looking at the data. You want to trust the science, trust the science. We know now, based on all of this, what to expect. Vulnerable people, in particular in bad shape, with several comorbidities, you should worry about them even during flu season. The elderly, you should worry about them even during flu season. But people essentially under 65 in pretty good shape, even if they didn't get the vaccine, were going to survive. Oh, yeah, that's weird. That's weird. You're weird, Chad. I don't know about that. Bunch of weirdos. But science is only good enough when science is good enough for the narrative that you want. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. Tweet at us. Coming up, we got more sound dump. That's the stuff that we're going to throw out there that we didn't get to this week. And there's plenty of stuff that we didn't get to. Some of it is fun. Some of it is, well...
They've been coming after me again lately.
Oh, yeah, the beautiful dulcet tones. Plus, our good buddy Zack Abraham is going to join us, talk about the market, where things are going financially, inflation, what is that going to do for us, and what could inflation really look like? We'll talk to him at the bottom of the hour. Calibrate. Speaking of getting in shape and losing weight, sometimes you have to make a serious lifestyle change because of health reasons, and you need to lose not just a few pounds, you need to lose percentage of body weight, and that's where Calibrate comes in. Calibrate is an FDA-approved medication, so it's a system you're going to go through with Calibrate, where you're going to get a FDA-approved and prescribed medication, and they're going to pair that with lifestyle changes, and it's going to improve your health tremendously. It is, and it's going to give you long-lasting effects, which is awesome. Over 2 decades, they worked on this, and with the coaching, man, the sustainable weight loss and what you've seen in the Calibrate members losing well over 14, 15, 20% of their body weight is amazing. You're going to get medical care, including video, doctor visits, in-app tracking, and working out with the communities and talking to them, as well as video coaching one-on-one. And right now, great opportunity for you to reset your metabolism with Calibrate. I'm telling you, if you're worried about your weight, and you want something where you're not going to super extremes, but you're doing it in a way that is sustainable, this is what it's all about. Your weight loss doesn't reflect your willpower. Now's the chance to get yourself back in control with Calibrate. $50 off the 1-year metabolic reset. That's $50 off when you use promo code CHAD at joincalibrate.com. That's joincalibrate.com to save $50 off. Use code CHAD. Code CHAD. That's code CHAD at joincalibrate.com. Chad Benson Show.
You go, boy.
This isn't about right or left. This is just about right and wrong.
Right you are, Chad. The Chad Benson Show.
They've been coming after me again lately, in case you might have noticed. It's funny, the more trouble Trump gets into, the wilder the charges and conspiracy theories about me seem to get. Investigations draw closer to him, and right on cue, the noise machine gets turned up, doesn't it?
It's time for a little sound dump. That's where we play a lot of stuff that we didn't get to this week. That's always fun to get to. That, of course, Hillary right there. She's what do you say at this moment in time about Hillary? You know, it's like they're coming for you, but are they really? Hillary's like the drug dealer, right? You know, but not the drug dealer, the drug trafficker. The dealer on the street gets popped, but they're 25 times removed from who's doing whatever they're supposed to be doing. The Durham report could be interesting, but the reality is it going to be? I'm not quite sure if it is or isn't.
Well, for me, this whole thing has sort of culminated in really being about the silencing of dissent and really not being allowed to hold a viewpoint that is outside, you know, whatever the mainstream narrative is, the orthodoxy. And I was very outspoken that closed schools were harming children in my city, San Francisco, and in cities across the country. And
that right there is Jennifer Say. She resigned and declined $1 million payout from Levi's. She was on pace to be their CEO. But because, I don't know, insanity in San Francisco, the locking down things, she was very outspoken about the fact. By the way, her and her husband are vaxxed. Her and her husband they were not anti-vaxxers. They are, again, it goes back to, it was about the kids, getting them back in school, but she got branded evil and bad for speaking up about it. And the CEO now eventually said, hey, this is too untenable for you to be here. You're going to have to step down. But we know what happened in San Francisco with the insanity, didn't we? Because the school board, they made changes.
The people of San Francisco have spoken and sent a loud and clear message that we want the school district to focus on their fundamental responsibility. That is educating our children. That has to be the priority.
Yeah, that's London Breed talking about getting those people out because people were pissed, people were angry. While she is progressive, she's not insane. They looked at the school board and said, you guys are more worried about changing names and being woke than you are about dealing with the needs of the family. You've got a budget deficit. You're trying to get rid of 44 names on schools when people are just trying to get their damn kids in schools.
And seeing their children go from these, talkative, robust personalities to all of a sudden, quiet and uncomfortable and just different has been really, I think, a breaking point for a lot of families in San Francisco.
Yep. And they made that change. We move from there to, I don't know, Congress with who?
Congress wants Britney Spears to come over. On Instagram Wednesday, the singer posted a pic of a letter she got in December from Democratic reps Eric Swalwell and Charlie Crist, asking her to share a conservatorship experience in D.C.
Because that's exactly what they need to be worried about. What? You don't think so? No, I don't think so. I understand that conservatorship needs to be talked about, some of this stuff. But please, can we just for a second say settle down when it comes to this situation here with her. Right? One star, one celebrity. It's going on right now, too, I think, with Wendy Williams. I think one of the banks froze her accounts because they're worried about her being taken advantage of. These are all questions that need to be talked about. Absolutely. I think more at a state level than anywhere else.
I'm going to say this, and, I'm not saying it out of hate. I'm saying it out of love. I'm a black man that's the mayor. But my story has been interpreted by people that don't look like me. We got to be honest about that. We need to really stop distorting the news. How many blacks are in the editorial boards? How many blacks are determining how these stories are being written? How many Asians? How many East Indians? How many South Asians? Everybody talks about my government being diversified. What's the diversification in the newsrooms?
Yeah, absolutely. Right? Like, we've got to tell everybody's story. In saying that, shouldn't we also have people who have different thought, or is it just about the color of the skin? That is the mayor, Eric Adams of New York City, talking about diversifying the newsrooms with skin color. What? Well, it should be thought, too, you would think. Just throwing it out there. A little bit more sound dump. But coming up, let's talk the market. Let's talk the economy. Zack Abraham, Bulwark Capital, is going to join us straight ahead. We're going to talk about what could happen should Russia attack to your money. Chad Benson Show.
The Chad Benson Show.
Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
The market goes up, it goes down. Inflation is rising. We're close to going and seeing something we haven't seen in 70 plus years, potentially in Eastern Europe, with Russia invading the Ukraine. God only knows what that'll do to your money and your market. Could be all over the place. And, of course, gas prices. I don't know if you guys are aware of that. They've gone up. Joining us now is our financial guru we talk to every Friday, Zack Abraham. He's the Principal Chief Investment Officer at Bulwark Capital. All right, Zack, first and foremost, the chaos of what could take place in the Ukraine, what in God's name would that do to the market and the economy?
I don't really know what the big impact in terms of the way it would affect the market. Obviously, there'd be, if it escalates at all, there will be a sea red. I mean, there will be some nastiness. I think the biggest impact, Chad, honestly, would be commodity prices, right? I think the thing that is somewhat, and I don't want to be hyperbolic, but I think the thing that is somewhat dangerous is we've been saying for 6 months, or really the last year, that when you look at oil, production is not coming back online, right? It is still crimped. And we are drawing down inventories broadly. Okay, so we are sucking up more than we're currently producing, and we're heading into the summer driving season. And there's a lot of people out there that think there's geopolitical risk priced into oil right now. There's not. We've been saying a long time, wait till there becomes a geopolitical issue, right? Because you get the geopolitical issues involved, you're messing with shipping lanes, you're looking at embargoes, you're doing all these things that are going to crimp global trade, and that, I think, will hit the things that are already the highest priced, right? Like commodities, things that need to be shipped via international shipping lanes. Well, geopolitical tensions raise up. And, you're always going to see a surplus, you're going to see a premium priced into those, oil, nat gas, all that kind of stuff. And that's the stuff right now that's rising the fastest. So I think that's the biggest risk. Is it going to affect Apple's earnings? Probably not. Is it going to affect oil? If things were to escalate, yeah, I think it would probably put a pretty good charge under oil.
Let's just say it does affect oil and the commodity prices go up. And I've tried to explain this here, I haven't been a commodity broker for years, is the oil prices, when it moves, it drags all the other energies. And that the effect that it has on nat gas and many of the other things is tremendous. And oil is in everything. If you have plastic, that's petroleum. People don't understand that stuff is going to rise. It's going to rise everywhere, including your supermarket.
Well, yeah, 100%. So a perfect example of, Man, you couldn't have teed it up any better. So, and by the way, we did not chat about this pre-show. So, anyway, you couldn't be 100% right. We're seeing that happen right now. So, nat gas has soared in price. It's up probably about 3.5, maybe 4x, right around there from where it was just a year ago. And there are massive shortages around the world with nat gas. Okay, so what that has created is a massive shortage in fertilizer. People look at me kind of sideways when I say that, right? Well, China's the biggest exporter and the biggest producer of fertilizer, and they do not have substantial fossil fuel resources, right? So they got to import the vast majority of their energy. Well, the biggest component to create the fertilizer and the components that make fertilizer is natural gas, right? So China's short, and so they have completely closed down the export of fertilizer, and they have stopped the production of fertilizer because they're looking at production of fertilizer versus keeping lights and heat on in our people's homes. Pretty easy trade-off, right? Well, what that's going to do, and what's amazing, Chad, is people are talking about food prices yet. That hasn't hit. And we've been reading, crop journals, and we have not, but reading reports of people talking to farmers, going to conferences, and you're looking at fertilizer prices up 50, 60, 70%. Well, that is going to impact the way farmers farm. They have to, because they're just saying, hey, we got to find alternative sources of fertilizer, which means lower crop yields, and the knock-on effects just keep coming, right? And Chad, I think you said it perfectly. Energy prices not only drag energy prices higher, but they're going to drag everything higher because everybody forgets. It's amazing to me, but everybody forgets that underneath nothing works, nothing happens, no transistors, no microchips, nothing works without electricity and without power. And I think the world's, and I'm not hoping for this, right? I just think the world's about ready to really appreciate how important nat gas and oil are.
Absolutely. Chief Investment Officer Zack Abraham from Bulwark Capital joins us. So in the marketplace, people, because I get it every day, because, after I'll talk to you today, I'll have 10 people text or email me, so what does that mean for the market? Like, what's going to happen to my 401k? Like, what's going to happen to my investments in X, Y, and Z? How is this? It's not going to have an effect, but it could have an effect, because I think people are confused, because a lot of Americans, they look at the stock market and think, well, the stock market's up, the economy should be good.
Yeah. Well, look, a little anecdotal thought, just for everybody. So the period from 2008 to 2019, okay, in economics, we refer to nominal growth and real growth. The period of time from 2008 to 2019 was the slowest period of real economic growth in the history of our country, and yet the S&P went up 350%. Okay, people go, what about the Great Depression? Well, Great Depression had about 1.3 to 1.4% nominal growth, but remember, they had deflation most of the time. They had a couple inflationary spikes in the middle, but they were at zero inflation, if not deflation, right? Prices dropped. Well, when you look at our economic growth, we averaged right around 2.1 from 2008 to 2019, and we were averaging right around 1.9 to 2% inflation. Okay, markets still went up. Why? Because they're pumping money. They see, and the problem is that is anesthetized people, and that has an impact on markets. Right? When you've got low inflation, low interest rates, high growth tech stocks do well in that environment because capital is cheap, right? These are not companies that are throwing off a lot of cash flow, but they're growing revenues fast. And so that makes their access to capital, much cheaper. You get into a rising rate interest rate environment, the exact opposite is true. And I think the biggest danger is the market going to do well over the next 5 to 10 years? Look, probably not. History says that when you get to valuations like this, you're probably looking at -3 to 0% annualized growth per year over the next 10 years. Now, Chad, you know this, but we've had similar periods of times in the past. And nobody knows exactly what's going to happen. My crystal ball is cloudy too. But the 70s, I think, are a very good analog. If you were invested, like most of your listeners are, just in diversified mutual funds or S&P 500 ETFs, it's probably not going to be a very fun time for you. if you are diversified and have proper amounts of natural resources and things like that, in the 70s, not only did you do okay, you became extraordinarily wealthy. Oil went from $2 to 20. Gold went from 35 to nearly 1,000. Silver went from like $1.50 to $2 to $50, right? But the thing that is so pernicious about this cycle, Chad, is that everybody is hyper concentrated in the stuff that gets killed in these environments, and they have absolutely no exposure to the things that do well.
Yeah, well, that's the way it's the big things, man. When I was trading commodities, I tell everybody all the time, trying to trade some of these things, it sounds good to tell everybody in the street, I'm trading this and I'm trading that, but get rich on corn. The money spends the exact same, and people don't understand that because, well, they're short-sighted. Talking to Zack Abraham, Bulwark Capital. All right, so we're talking about the market, and I think that's big. Inflation is playing a part. You've got raising rates. The mortgage rates just jumped yesterday, and people are looking around and thinking to myself, okay, money is going to get more expensive, and that's going to affect a lot of things like your credit card, your car payment, things of that nature. Can the Fed play around like they think they can? Because I think that ship sailed, and I don't think they have the magic touch to try to stop inflation. And Janet Yellen is, well, she's not Yoda.
No, but here's the thing. It's like the old adage, you don't want to corner a wounded animal. The Fed is going to – we said this prior to COVID. We didn't know COVID was going to happen, but I've long argued that I thought the Fed would eventually buy corporate bonds. They ended up buying them during COVID. I think you're going to see more gymnastics. I think you're going to see them one of my predictions has long been I think that you will see them in an inflationary period try to raise interest rates and ramp quantitative easing at the same time, which is pretty wild to think about. But it's the only way I think they're going to be able to control the rates on the bond market. Because if they start raising rates to fight inflation, the bonds are going to get absolutely destroyed. And they already are. I mean, shoot, look at last year. You look at TLP tracks U.S. Treasury bonds was down 4.5% last year. It's already down 6% this year. So I think you're going to don't bet against them, but I think eventually you're right. They don't have the tools to fight inflation that they do to fight deflation. They just don't.
It's going to be interesting to see what takes place from here. Your gut, a year from now, where are we sitting in the stock market? Where are people who are getting close to retiring thinking maybe I got to wait another year, or are they thinking they're okay? And people who are just now getting in the market, like where are they going to be looking at? A year from now is really tough to say. I think it's going to have a lot to do, obviously, with inflation. You might kind of see a sideways grind overall in the market, but as we look at it now, the indexes aren't telling the story. If you look at the market, people are like, oh, the Dow's down. There is carnage going on underneath the surface of these indexes. And I think that's going to be kind of the story. My prediction would be kind of a sideways to slightly down grind. But like I said, I think there's going to be sectors that do incredibly well. The last 20 years have been all about just riding the indexes, right? And everybody just believes that's the only way. If you are sitting in traditional mutual funds, ETFs, and bonds in this cycle. It's not going to cost them anything to check you guys out online and go through a quick course. How do they get in touch?
You can just give us a call, 866-779-RISK. You can go to Bulwark Capital Management. We're not going to twist any arms. It's a 30-minute presentation. We walk you through how we do things differently, what it costs, show you the performance of our funds, tell you best of luck. Give us a ring if you want to have a one-on-one consultation. So no obligation, no cost. Just a way for people to actually not just hear a voice on the radio, but see how we do things.
Fantastic, man. Love having you on. We'll talk to you next week. Zack Abraham, Bulwark Capital. Appreciate it, man.
You bet.
At Chad Benson Show, Twitter, ChadBenson. I've often wondered, like, Tesla's worth, like, all the car companies put together. And I'm like, how is that possible? Like, I like Tesla, but how is that possible? It's just some of this stuff boggles my mind out there. Like, I get oil and gas. Commodities always been easy for me. It's always been an easier thing for me. And by the way, speaking of commodities, for those of you who don't know, Ukraine produces a vast amount of wheat and grains, one of the largest exporters in the breadbasket of Europe. So you don't think that's going to have an effect on stuff? Again, little things that you don't think about, like why would wheat be important? Well, not only is oil going to go up and it's going to cause certain things to go up, imagine bread going up exponentially because of certain things. We'll talk about that. We got a little bit of fun straight ahead, kids. What fun is that? Some more audio dump, and we'll wrap up the show. It's the Chad Benson Show.
Set Chad straight. Text the show, 323-538-2423. That's 323-538-CHAD. Someone has to do it. Might as well be you. The Chad Benson Show.
That is us. We're going to start doing this more and more. We're going to call this our audio dump. We got a lot of stuff that we just don't get to, and I don't want to let it go to waste. I don't. I want to make sure that people hear all the fun.
Is appropriate also in talking about the vaccines. Yes, we were quite confident that the results of the phase 3 trials were very clear. But of course, we found out later that there were rare events of pericarditis, myocarditis. In the case of the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, rare events of a clotting disorder that was too rare to have popped up in a 30,000 person trial. As we said, the vaccines are safe and effective. It would have been appropriate to say, based upon the possibility there might be side effects that could in fact be significant.
What? That right there is former NIH director Francis Collins talking about, there's some significant side effects of myocarditis that should have been more clearly stated up front when it came to the J&J vaccine. From one to another.
Being cases, although they are coming down rather sharply, which is really very, very good news. Both hospitalizations and cases are coming down in a rather sharp decline. They have the coding of either substantial or high degree of viral activity, and well over 90% of the country is in that area where it's recommended by the CDC to keep going on with the masks.
Oh, of course it is. That right there, Fauci, as we all know, he's good times and fun. Oh, my Lord. How about some wokeism?
Well, wokeism is not the opposite of any political party. It's the opposite of forgiveness. That's why everybody is so disgusted by it. We predicted this. It's a 100% kind of political entity like Marxism or Maoism. It's not a human behavior. It's a construct that the human has to be forced into, right? That's why nobody likes it. But except for academics who live in some kind of abstract universe. And somehow this infection intimidated itself into the Democratic Party, but now it's eating the party from inside.
Yes, it is. In fact, the brand is not doing well. And the brand is the Democratic Party. And if you've not seen, there's a bunch of reports out today that in not just rural America, but even across the country in some bigger cities, the people are worried about what is going on with the brand itself because the super leftists are being showed the door in a lot of places, and the defunding the police and that you can have 7,000 genders and et cetera, has not played out the way they have thought. We're not done. We got more. Michelle DeFoya.
Aaron, obviously emotional. What's the immediate feeling you've got right now?
I'm just so happy. I wanted this so bad. I dreamed this, man.
Michelle DeFoya retiring from sportscasting. Michelle, we love you. You have been so much fun, and we'll hear a lot more from her.
Yes, indeed. She's out. She's bouncing. She is leaving the sports world. I love Michelle. I thought she did a great job. And, you're going out on top. You did the Super Bowl. You got to talk to everybody out there. But it's time to get out. And it started with, just a glimpse on what was going on when she was on The View. And I think a lot of people were like, oh, my God, I can't believe that she's saying those kind of things. But the reality is this is kind of what happens, right? Sometimes you get to a certain point where you're like, I don't know if I want to do this kind of broadcast anymore. I've seen behind there are other things that I'm interested in. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. Tweet at us, text the program. Solid, fun week. I want to thank Zack Abraham. You missed any of the interview with him. It's very interesting to see where the market could be going, inflation, how money's going to be more expensive, and what could take place, not just because oil's rising and we could see higher gas prices. Think about it across the board. Stuff is going to continue to rise because of higher gas prices. Of course, we keep watching out for what may happen. We could come back on next week. I'll be off Monday. We could come back next week, and we could be watching parts of the world at war. It'd be crazy. You guys have a blessed, amazing rest of your week. We'll do it again next week. Night, Jack.
This is The Chad Benson Show.